This is the Toss-Up, where we take a look at some of the topics facing the world of sports and then we dive deeper. Whether it's your best friend's fantasy team or the future of college athletics, we're just trying to expand the conversation. We just want to take a look at the topics that keep you tuned in to the beautiful world of sports. Four NCAA tournament appearances in the last 5 seasons, 2 conference championships in the last 5 seasons, at least 30 wins in every season since 2008 except for one, a first-round draft pick turned World Series champion. I could continue listing the achievements of Indiana baseball in the last decade, but the list is too long. The point is, this program has been consistently toward and often at the top of the Big Ten for a while, and this season has the potential to be one of the best. With the pitching staff returning en masse and a handful of weapons at the plate, Indiana baseball could be poised for a return to Omaha this summer. Hi folks, I'm Michael Dugan, and joining me on the panel this week, IDS baseball beat reporter Cameron Drummond, BTN Student U broadcaster Jack Grossman, and our very own IUSTV baseball beat reporter Austin Matricardi. Gentlemen, are we ready?
I'm ready.
Absolutely.
Let's get to it. All right, so Alex Krupa, Tony Butler, Craig Didolo, all gone this season. How are they going to replace that production at the plate?
Well, Michael, I want to bring it back a little bit and look at the movie Moneyball. In that movie, Billy Beane and the Oakland Athletics are trying to replace Jason Giambi and Johnny Damon, 2 of their stars who had left, and they decide that they have to do it more by committee. They can't do it with one guy. So applying that situation to the Hoosiers, I think everybody needs to step up their game a little bit. Obviously, they've lost 3 great players who were very productive for them last year. So you got to kind of put the load on everybody as a group in order to step up and kind of fill in their shoes.
Yeah, and also when you talk about maybe doing it kind of by committee, the Hoosiers still have the potential to have breakout stars at the plate, and one of those breakout stars is obviously Matt Lloyd, someone who can really come in, hit for power, make up some of the home runs that they've lost from last season with those graduated players, but also someone who can take over the offense at a time and really carry this team if they happen to be in an offensive funk. So I think the Hoosiers are going to have to rely on a player like Matt Lloyd to almost carry the team in certain stretches of the season.
And while you cited Moneyball, Austin, there's one little bit of a difference there. While Billy Beane brought in players from the outside, Indiana's going to rely a little bit more on players that have already been in the program, a la Matt Lloyd, who had over 300 last year and really slugged the ball well, a Logan Sowers, a Matt Gorski, guys that have been around for at least a year in Gorski's case, a couple of years, and some of the other guys that we know can match the ball. And the question is, can they continue to do it and take it to an even another level with a Craig Didolo leaving with his 19 home runs. Tony Butler led the team in batting average last season. The question is, can the guys that are back, along with a couple new guys via transfers and freshmen, really step up and take over what Didolo, Butler, and Krupa did last season?
And Jack, not only that, but we've heard Chris Lamona say that this year's team is a bit faster than the teams he's had in years past at Indiana. So we may even see the Hoosiers try a more small ball mentality, maybe try and get on the base pass and run and steal bases and try and get runs that way during games.
Yeah, and those guys produced a lot offensively, we know that, but they also were very reliable in the field. How is this team going to shuffle around defensively with the loss of those guys?
Well, I mean, you look at it, and there's a lot of really good athletes on this team that can play multiple positions. So I don't think that we're going to see, we could possibly not see the same lineup twice all season just with the way that everybody can work. But I think Lamonis wants his best 9 out there, he'll probably end up having Scotty Bradley play first base. He was hurt last year. He's coming back. He should be lock at first base. Matt Lloyd playing some second. There's some other guys there that could obviously help a little bit when Matt Lloyd maybe is on the mound. And then I think that Matt Gorski moves out to left field. Coach Lamonis was talking about it last week. Gorski is more of a natural outfielder, so it was kind of hard to get him to lock in at first base last year. So moving him back out there should put him right at home.
And you also see Larry Eustace get some time in the line, very good defensive outfielder. Will be a nice adjustment for Gorski to go back to his natural outfield position. You also have Jeremy Houston going into his sophomore season now, very reliable 9-hitter last year, overcame a little bit of injuries, and he's very, very smooth defensively, one of the best defensive shortstops in the conference. And, of course, you have Ryan Feynman behind the plate, who is almost MLB ready with how good he is defensively right now.
Yeah, Jack, I think Feynman is the key on defense for the Hoosiers because you talk about next to the pitcher, that pitcher-catcher battery combo are the two guys most in control of what happens out there on the field. And if Feynman can keep some of the young Hoosier pitchers in check and also help steady the older ones along, like a Jonathan Stever and a Paulie Milto, make sure no wild pitches get away and make sure that they're pitching to contact and pitching reliably, I think that makes the job much easier across the board for the Hoosiers on defense.
You know, we've name-dropped a couple of the leaders, but who are some younger guys or some inexperienced guys that we should get to know right now before the season starts that could make a splash by the end of the year?
I think the one guy you got to look at is Logan Kalitha. Last year at the junior college level, this guy absolutely raked. I believe he hit over 350. He's got wheels. Coach Lemonis seemed pretty confident in putting him as the front runner in the leadoff spot race. Obviously, there's some other very gifted Hoosiers that could take that spot as well, but Logan Kalitha seems to be a guy that a lot of people are really excited about, and it's hard to see, or it's easy to understand why they are.
Yeah, you nailed it right on the head with Kalitha. He's a guy trying to replace Alex Krupa, which we talked about earlier. Krupa was really the leadoff guy for the majority of the season last year after the first couple of games, and he's a guy that got on base, was really good at getting on base, and had a little bit of pop with it also. Kalitha's a guy that, as Austin said, raked a lot last year. If he can take over the leadoff spot, get on base, and let some of the sluggers be able to bring him home, that would be a huge help for the Hoosier lineup.
Yeah, I'm going to stay on the mound with my guy to watch, a young player, Connor Manus, formerly of the University of Miami, region rat from Munster, Indiana, guy with a wicked curveball, reliable fastball, doesn't use his changeup too much, but when he does, it can be deadly. And he was one of the only younger pitchers that Chris Lemonis mentioned as a possible starter for this team. He mentioned 7 pitchers that could possibly be starting, and if Manus wants to get in there and provide some innings for the Hoosiers this year, so early in his career, he could be a big help to that Hoosier pitching staff.
And another young pitcher that a lot of people haven't really been talking about much is Nick Eaton. Last year at Cathedral High School, he lit it up. He went 11-0. He, pitched them all the way to the state championship last year. The guy was just incredible. Nobody could touch him. So I would really love to see him get some innings for the Hoosiers. Maybe not early in the season, but as we work towards the Big Ten, maybe get him in there a few times, see what he can do for the Hoosiers this season, because if not this year, he will certainly be a contributor for Indiana in the following seasons.
And that could be a place where that could help him out, considering Austin Foote, Luke Stevenson both graduated. Got a couple of holes in the bullpen to fill. He's a guy that can really help with that.
All right. On that note, we're going to toss it to break, but coming up after the break, our panel will discuss expectations for a potentially big upcoming season. So stick with us. Welcome back to the Toss-Up. We're here talking IU baseball, but before we dive in and talk about the pitching staff and expectations, let's send it over to Mary Kate Hamilton for a look at the pitching staff by the numbers.
Thanks, Michael. With Myrtle Beach just days away, let's take a look at IU baseball by the numbers for this year. Out of the 7 starting pitchers used last season across all games, all 7 of them will be returning for the 2018 season. And this level of experience is definitely a good sign for this year's squad. Last season, Paulie Milto stepped onto the scene, pitching 78 innings and racking up 6 wins to go with 3 losses, earning himself the best pitching record on the team. Trailing right behind him was Jonathan Stever, who came into last year as a sophomore and worked his way into his spot as the Friday night starter, starting 14 games, the most out of all of the pitchers last season. Also worth noting are Tim Herron and Cal Kruger, who started 8 and 6 games respectively. Kruger struck out 37 batters last season, while Herron struck out 38, and Kruger held on to an impressive earned run average of 2.82, the second best on the team, falling only to current junior Matt Lloyd, who earned a preseason second-team All-American nod from the National Collegiate Baseball Writers Association. Last year, the Hoosiers were 34-24-2 on the season overall, 14-9-1 in conference play, and 20-15-1 in non-conference matchups. Reserve season tickets for Bart Kaufman Field are already sold out, and the excitement continues to build for this team as the season approaches. The 2018 team has been ranked amongst the top 25 teams in the nation by multiple preseason rankings, and the maturity of the pitching staff this year should give them, the team, some confidence coming into this season. Now back to you, Michael.
Thanks, Mary Kate. Last year, this team had a young and versatile pitching staff, and guys, they're bringing almost everyone back. So what's the starting rotation going to look like once this gets going?
Well, I mean, you look at it, Stever's going to be your Friday night guy. Milto's going to be your Saturday night guy. Sunday spot's a little more open. Cal Kruger pitched really well there last year. I personally think it's going to be Andrew Salfrank. Either option's great. Then you look in the bullpen, you got some great guys in Timmy Herron, BJ Sable that did really well last year at times, had their struggles. You also got Cade Crisco. Matt Lloyd's going to be the closer. So there's a lot of really good pitchers on this IU staff that got a lot of experience last year.
And Austin, someone I'm looking to have a big year in his final year at IU is Brian Hobby, a guy that really hasn't quite delivered the numbers you'd expect as an upperclassman pitcher last season, but I think as a senior this year, if he can work his way into potentially getting some starts in that Sunday afternoon role, maybe being a reliable presence out of the bullpen in the 5th or 6th inning, he could provide some veteran leadership for the Hoosiers going forward.
I think that Hobby is going to be really crucial early on in the season because, like you said, he kind of had a rough 2017. He had a few rough patches. He had a rough start against Kentucky. So I don't know if he necessarily cracks the starting rotation, but I think that he'll certainly possibly get a few midweek starts, especially early on in the season, and he'll probably be a solid, longer relief guy, mid-relief guy once they get into the Big Ten.
Yeah, and he'll be good because he can do whatever Indiana needs him to do. He can start on occasion, but can also provide long innings in the bullpen. But the guy I'm really looking at is Paulie Milto, who came in last season, didn't make a start until after going 6 1/3 in relief against Northwestern. Only made 10 starts and 20 appearances on the year last year, but was really, really strong all season on the mound. He pitched 6 or more innings in 8 of his 10 starts, and 9 of them he pitched 5 or more innings. So he's a guy that can give you length. He had a couple of rough outings in there, but he really looked good and consistent throughout the year and has a lot to build on from how well he pitched last season.
Yeah, I think we all look at Paulie Milto as the guy who's going to be the workhorse of the staff, one of numerous Hoosiers who got experience this summer on Cape Cod in the Cape Cod Baseball League, one of the most prestigious summer leagues out there for college players, and also someone who's a co-captain of this team as well, someone who's expected to provide leadership day in and day out.
And I mean, you look at a few other guys. I mentioned Timmy Herron and BJ Sable coming out of the pen. Those guys are some great athletes. They aren't just pitchers. You look at Timmy Herron, I believe that he's a former high school quarterback up at Terre Haute North. That's something that you're looking for in an athlete. He's obviously very athletic all around, and he's a great pitcher. He can provide a few innings out of the pen for Indiana. So can Sable. I think that those two guys are going to be crucial for this Indiana pitching staff.
And it's always great to have the great back end of Matt Lloyd, knowing he can come in there and slam the door when you need him to in the 9th and really close the game out. He's a preseason All-American for good reason because he had a great year last year, and he's built up to have an even better year at the plate and on the mound this season.
Now, last year, this pitching staff was somewhat unreliable, inexperienced, and definitely young. What can we expect from them this year?
I think you have to expect improvement. Like you said, especially the bullpen last year was very inconsistent. I looked at it last year, looked at some of the numbers, and basically last year, the bullpen was a coin flip. Heads, they do well, and they, hold the lead, or, they keep Indiana in a ball game. Tails, all heck breaks loose, and the Hoosiers lose by 10. So you got to expect more consistency out of this pitching staff now that they have that experience, and you know that they have that talent.
Yeah, I think last season's really a great learning experience for them. Just a lot of young guys trying to figure out, get it together, and they did enough to where they're able to get into the NCAA tournament and compete in that Lexington Regional. And the question is, can they use that experience from last year and really build on it and become, as Austin said, more consistent and really, especially with the bullpen where the most question marks are, even though you have Lloyd at the end, can BJ Sable be consistent? Can a couple of these other guys be consistent? I think the struggles they went through last year will help them with that.
And guys, this goes back to our earlier argument pointing back to all the production that IU loses on offense. I'm looking to this IU pitching staff to be the strength of the Hoosiers this season. When you look at their top 10 pitchers by innings pitched last season, all 10 of those guys return. That's more experience. That's more guys getting comfortable being on the mound day in and day out. And especially with the offensive production that they lose, the Hoosier pitching staff is going to have to really lock down on the mound to help this team along.
All right, gentlemen, it's time for the lightning round. There's one rule. You have to answer the question in 10 seconds or less. The first question, offensive MVP of this season and why?
I'll go Matt Lloyd, guy most important to the team and guy who's going to have to deliver the most in crucial situations.
Gorski, because he's going to make a really big jump from his freshman to sophomore year and add a little bit more power to his game.
Logan Sowers, he hits dingers.
Fair enough. Can't argue that. Pitching staff MVP.
For me, Pauly Milto, guy who's a junior, co-captain, like I mentioned, going to have to be a dominant presence on the mound.
Milto's a very good choice. I'm going to go with Jonathan Stever, however, going to set that tone on Friday nights all season long for the weekend, get the Hoosiers off on the right foot in every weekend series.
Pauly Milto, he's the rock of this pitching staff. He's the workhorse. He's everything.
Breakout player, who's it going to be?
I think Jeremy Houston coming back from injury, delivering not only a presence at the plate in the bottom of the order, but also in the infield with some solid defense.
Couldn't agree more. He's really good defensively. Jeremy Houston is really the anchor of the infield at that shortstop position along with Ryan Feynman.
I'm going to take Matt Gorski. I think that he's got all the tools that you want to see in a baseball player. He's got versatility. He can hit anywhere in the lineup. He can play a lot of different places in the field.
All right, guys, now, end of the lightning round. You can elaborate on this one a little bit more. Fast forward to June. We're looking back on this season. What did this team accomplish and how far did they go?
I think this team can reach the NCAA tournament quite easily, but then the real test becomes once they get into the regionals and possibly even the super regionals. Did IU position itself in a good enough spot to get some home games, to not have to face some of the bigger teams in the NCAA tournament, and did they get the favorable matchups? Because as we know, the postseason is all about matchups.
Yeah, it's going to be a really tough road for them in the postseason, as it always is once you get into the NCAA tournament, but they are by far the favorites to win the Big Ten. They should win the Big Ten. They're the most talented team in the Big Ten. Baseball's a crapshoot, and we know that. And once you get into the regional and the super regional, you got to have the pitching to stabilize the team and really help you get to Omaha, which is what this team thinks they can do.
This season, the regular season isn't about whether or not the Hoosiers can make the NCAA tournament. It's whether or not they're going to be hosting a regional at Bart Kaufman Field. And this is a roster that's talented enough to do that, certainly. So I think you have to kind of have high expectations for this team. You have to, they expect to make it to Omaha because that's their goal. So I think that that's a reasonable expectation for fans to have as well.
And is there a realistic ceiling just to get to Omaha, or could they go even further and bring back some hardware?
You know what? Like Jack said, baseball's a crapshoot. You just have to have a talented team. And this Hoosier squad is very talented, very versatile, and very experienced. So national championship is not out of the question here.
You guys agree?
I don't know. It's kind of hard to push national championship because just looking at the Big Ten in recent history, only one team's made it to the College World Series this millennium, and that was Indiana back in 2014. So it's hard just to get to the College World Series. I think we got to put that into perspective. But I think Omaha is a very realistic goal for this team because it is definitely something that they have the talent to do. They just got to go out there and perform well day in, day out. It definitely helps if you end up hosting a regional or a super regional. And they just got to kind of go out there and perform and, well, do it.
And the closing stretch this season for the Hoosiers in conference play is going to be really important to their seeding in terms of maybe getting the favorable draw in the regionals and the super regionals. We had Chris Lamonis tell us that he's already put vacation days in for the end of May to try and get his team prepared and to make a run into the tournament and go deep into the tournament. So it's all about finishing the regular season strong and, like any sport, playing your best to the best of your ability, your best baseball when it matters most in the postseason.
All right, guys. Time for last words as we near the end of this discussion. Your last word, one word on IU baseball this season.
I'm going to go with consistency. We talked about whether it was the bullpen being a coin flip, whether it was good or not last season, who's going to produce for guys who have gone away like Alex Krupa and Craig Dedelo at the plate. If the Hoosiers can be consistent across the board, both gaining experience on the mound and filling in for those guys they've lost on offense, then, as we've mentioned before, the sky's the limit for this team.
I'm going to go with slugging because even though Dedelo, Krupa, and Butler are gone, this is a lineup full of heavy hitters with Gorski, Matt Lloyd, Logan Sowers, just to name a couple. This team can hit the ball out of the yard, and they're going to do it a lot this season, which will make them a lot of fun to watch.
My last word is pretty simple. Omaha. That's where they have to get. This team has the Omaha Challenge every winter. That's where they want to get. That's where they're focused on. Hoosier fans got to be waiting for this team to get to Omaha because it's been a few years since they've been.
Yeah, you guys all nailed it. It has been a few years since they've been to Omaha, and maybe they can make it back this year. Who knows? Recently, Indiana Athletics has had some pretty good success, whether it's been basketball winning the Big Ten a couple years ago, football back-to-back bowl games. IU soccer's been great, swimming and diving, we know what they can do. But can baseball get back to Omaha? These guys just talked about it. They certainly can, but we'll see if they will. Show up to Bart Kaufman Field this season and watch these guys play. Well, that does it for the show this week. Be sure to continue the discussion on our Twitter page at IUSTV Sports and on Facebook at IUSTV Sports. You can always give any suggestions for the show. Ask any questions you may have. Toss it up. Find out if we'll catch it. We'll see you next time.